Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Gaming Geist. Always here with Brad, aka FF Freak 1771. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different topic. It's not so much news about new games or information that we have found on games. It's actually going to be a little bit more of a medical study today as far as what we've discovered in gaming. And before we go into this, I do want to say this is not an end-all, beat-all opinion. We don't know this to be fact. This was a small study done in another country. We'll get into where and all that later. So don't take this as us saying that this is fact. This was maybe a handful of 120 people that were involved in this study. But what researchers are saying is that they can directly link first-person gaming of practically any kind, whether it's shooter-based or melee mechanic or whatever, to a loss in gray matter in the brain, increasing things like dementia, depression, and schizophrenia as well. So definitely some interesting information. We're going to go over here in just a second how we got to that information and how we discovered it. But for the time being, I think I'm going to give it over to Brad for just a sec, let him kind of talk about what his opinion is on this and a little bit about the subject before I take back over and read you guys a little bit from this article here. So Brad, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks, man. Well, first off, this study, when you first brought this study to me, man, I'm kind of skeptical about the research that they're doing because it's been brought up in studies before that first-person shooters especially can increase hand-eye coordination, which, of course, is good for the brain. You know, your brain sends a signal to your hands and eyes to react. I mean, your hand-eye coordination is improved, which you would think would help the brain. So saying that the gray matter is reduced because of first-person shooters, I don't know. I mean, the two studies kind of contradict one another, and there have been multiple studies done on how it increases hand-eye coordination and what have you. Not very significantly, from my understanding, but it does help it. And the fact that they're saying now that it decreases gray matter in the brain, that's it could be due to gamer rage, because FPSs are some of the most rage quit type of games. You know, people rage so much they get angry and stressed out. Stress decreases gray matter in the brain.
Could
it be because
they've attributed the specific loss to what they're saying is basically you play the game enough in first person, and it's that kind of a game that you stop using your brain to think and actually figure out what is my next move, what am I going to do from here, and you start going on autopilot, Ludi, basically. You know the maps, you know the weapons, you know the hiding spots, etc., etc. So your brain kind of goes into this non-thinking autopilot mode where, like, you're not really doing anything intelligent because you already know. You're just running off of muscle memory. And they say in those moments you're not using the proper parts of your brain that would increase the gray matter. Which the flip side of the argument here, and this is where it gets really interesting to me, is that platforming games and things that use spatial memory actually increase the gray matter in the brain according to this study. It's not just a one-way street of loss. When you play different types of games, they can actually increase it. So that's very interesting to me to think that, for example, I feel like if somebody played a lot of Mario and they learned the levels, I feel like they could be running on autopilot as well, though. I mean, don't you think that could be the case?
Yeah, especially for people like speedrunners. You know?
Exactly. Like that's why they're so fast, is because it's muscle memory. So, I mean, are you really fixing or helping your gray matter in that situation?
I don't know, man. But gaming, especially in this area, not only this area, but all kinds of other areas, such as violence and all that crap, have been controversial topics. And I think this is one of those controversial topics that have both good and bad sides to it. And you also have to take it with a grain of salt, because this is a very small study done in France, I believe. A very small study by one university or one group, and I think they need to do more studies in order to verify this in a larger group of people. But I mean, I don't know, man. I take it with a grain of salt because there's so much stigma surrounding video games in general nowadays, even though it has become far more accepted than it was, 10, 20 years ago.
Oh, by far. Just to kind of touch base here on what you said there, I've got the article pulled up. The study was done at the Department of Psychology at the Université de Montréal.
Okay. Okay. So
from the Douglas Institute in Quebec. So both are based in Canada there. I'm trying to read through this real quick and just kind of get a little bit more of an idea on where they started the study at. But one of the biggest things that they said was their cause for the study initially was cognitive function. And they said that they had developed a theory that people who played a lot of first-person gaming had less cognitive ability than those who played spatial learning games, something like Mario or Crash or any other kind of, spatial awareness platformer.
Well, I play a lot of RPGs, so I must have no gray matter left in my brain, because that doesn't really require a lot of thinking or fast movement once you get everything down.
and see, I'm not sure. Like, how do you break down what is what is spatial learning and what isn't? What is gray matter destruction versus replication? I feel like there's a lot of games where both in one game you might have a little bit of gray matter loss and gray matter gain just from the same game, depending on whether you're doing a mini game inside of the game or depending on the side quest. So for me, one of the biggest things about this study is, even if it is true, how big is it? Like, is it really something that needs to be looked into that hard, or is this just like, hey, breathing the air is bad for you too, but you have to, you got to do that anyway. So if you want to game, just game. Because, I mean, in the long run, are we talking like, yes, you're going to get dementia if you play these types of games, or are we talking, yeah, you got a 3%, 4% increase?
It's about moderation, man. Moderation is always key with everything, whether it's gaming or caffeine or, it could be anything.
Well, that's true. And then nothing about sitting on your ass for 6 hours straight looking at a TV screen is healthy. I'm not going to pretend I never do it, but it's not good for me.
We definitely are guilty of that, but we know the consequences of it. And
yeah, I'm skinny and my ass gets sore.
More like my tailbone, because I don't have anything to set on but my tailbone. Got no meat on me, but yeah.
That's what they're calling response learning. I'm browsing back through the article. They're calling it response learning, is what is associated with the loss of this gray matter. And that response learning is just that. You're just reacting to situations. You're not actually progressively thinking. You're just reacting to the things that are happening. And they're saying that reduces the gray matter in the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain linked to episodic memory orientation. Low amount of gray matter in the brain area is related to Alzheimer's disease, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, etc., etc. Again, though, like, it goes into the stratium. Contains, and these are words, God, I don't even understand these. Anyway, contains the quadet nucleus, I hope I said that right, somebody will probably correct me if I didn't there, which plays an important role in the formation of habits and procedural memory. That's the kind of memory we rely on to walk, talk, swim, ride a bicycle. They're saying that it tears into that it tears into that memory that you use to walk. Like, I'm not one to argue with scientific research that I can't replicate myself, but I've been gaming now for 7 years on a very regular basis, and I can walk just fine. I'm a bartender. I'm great with my hands. No, that wasn't a joke. I'm not of any kind. I'm being serious. Like, I don't mean it like that for all you perverts. You're gonna fucking take it that way. But I don't think I've lost any cognitive ability or skill. I feel like I still perform my job well. I can still ride a bike, and I can still swim just fine. So I don't know where you're going with all that, Mr. Scientist, but I haven't experienced it.
Well, the thing is, I can't say I have either, because for all our viewers out there, I have cerebral palsy, so my cognitive function is bad anyway. Everything is kind of janked up on my end anyway, so I can't really have anything to compare it to. And like I said, they need to do a more broad study with more people in more places and with more varieties of games,
Sorry, I got killed by a zombie.
So I don't know. It's a very strange, very controversial study, and I really don't think there's enough evidence there to take it as gospel truth or to completely dismiss it. I think it's right there in the middle.
And it is,
like
because
I said,
the study, even right here, it says 51 males, 46 females. You know, so we're not even actually looking at 120 like I had thought. You know, we're actually looking at an even lower number. So with such a small group of people, you do kind of have to wonder that, Brad. You know, like you said, like,
yeah.
are there other factors that are attributing to this in comparison to it all being the video game? I mean, because there's so many factors that play into this. That's why people can't tell you the exact reason that people get cancer, because we don't know if it is the cigarettes or the food or the air or all of it. You know, like, we don't really know.
Right. It's a combination of multiple things, and we would have to do multiple studies on multiple aspects to really figure things out. So yeah, it's definitely a controversial topic, but one that needs further study and further investigation for sure.
Like it says here, one of the studies they did was a virtual maze that encouraged people to get out. Just basically like, remember your way that you've come, find your way out of this maze, blah, blah, blah. They did the same study again, but they gave people landmarks. There were things like rocks and mountains and trees here and there. There were specific things that they could remember within this maze. And they say that they noticed the gray matter in the people who had the landmarks decrease because they had things that they could look back to and say, okay, well, I know that's there. I've been there. They didn't really have to think about it too much. And that's kind of one of the things that they pointed out with gaming, is that games that give you a mini-map are actually counterintuitive to your brain, because you can look at that and you don't have to think as much about where you're going. So that little mini-map, they're saying, if that goes away, it's not as bad for you physically to play these games. And that's such an odd concept, to think that one little mini map in the corner, and they got all this based on a test study of people running in a virtual maze. I think it's an interesting study. I think there's definitely more that could be done with it, but I don't know how willing I am to buy into all this when I've been gaming extensively for a long time now. And I know there's people out there that game far more extensively than I do that are still walking, talking, and riding bikes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
Right. I definitely agree. Like I said, it needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Nobody panic because, oh, I played a video game for 2 hours, now I'm gonna get dementia. No, that's ridiculous. But yeah, definitely need to follow up with this study, see if they do anything more, because it definitely needs to be more in depth. They need a wider range of different types of games and more people. And I think if we keep up with this, maybe do a follow-up video on this and see if anything at all might change in the future.
Yeah, definitely, because I'm rereading this article here, and it does kind of go on to repeat itself a little bit. Just it says different things, or the same thing in different ways, I should say. So I'm not going to continue too far down this article. If anybody does watch this video and wants to look into it, it is on Medical News Today. I don't know how reliable of a source they actually are as far as real news and shit, but it is a gaming page. They do actively put up stuff about gaming and medical health at the same time, kind of hand in hand with one another. So it's Medical News Today is where I found this. There's plenty of other websites. AMP has it, a few other ones. So if anybody wants to look into this, if I could fucking speak, Jesus. If anybody wants to look into this
today, man,
on their own, feel free to get some information on it yourself. We're not going to cover too much more on it, because like I said, it just starts to go in circles there. So I think we'll keep the video where it's at here. We're pushing 15 minutes. Brad, any final thoughts or closing statements on this one?
No, I don't have enough gray matter in my brain for any thoughts, man. I play too much video games.
There you go. You guys heard it here first. It's killing us.
Peace out, guys.
Yep. Y'all have a great day. Anybody who wants to give us a like, subscribe, we would very much appreciate it.
Definitely.
Oh, hold on here. 1 sec before I cut this off, actually. Rage Against the Elite sent me a comment here. He said it's all in conveyance is what they bring mini-maps out for. Oh, convenience. Gotcha. It's the convenience is what the mini-maps are for. And I do agree with that. I know I said I was going to cut the video here, but just because of your comment, I'm going to stick around for a second. I do agree with that. It's extremely frustrating to play an open-world game that doesn't have a mini-map. I've been there. I don't enjoy it. I like the mini-map. Keep it around, people. Fuck what they say it does to your brain. Keep the mini-map in my games. Peace, y'all.